So today we are going to learn about sex-linked traits, right? So what that means is that sometimes specific genes or specific traits are located on the X or Y chromosome, right? Oh, we're gonna need to get rid of that, right? Right? So this is sort of rare. It's unusual. That's why we're gonna go over it. And there can have many different inheritance patterns. And this is going to seem a little bit complicated at first, but we are going to get through it. So when we look at a karyotype, which is everybody's chromosomes all together, male and female karyotypes are the same until we get down here until the X chromosome. So we have the same 22 chromosomes, and then the 23rd chromosome is different. So in a female, it's XX, two X chromosomes, and a male is XY, right? And you've probably heard that before. But that is an important thing to remember, right? You can see here that the Y chromosome looks different than the X chromosome, right? It's a little shorter. So that brings about our first important thing that you need to know, which is that you have let me freeze it. You have your X is female, Y is male, right? The two chromosomes are coming from mom and dad, right? So in this example, mom gave an X and dad gave an X. And in this example, mom gave an X and dad gave a Y, right? Mom will never give a Y because she only has X chromosomes, right? So this is female. This is male. And dad is the only, so sometimes people blame women for like only having girls, but it's really all up to whether or not that Y chromosome comes from dad, right? So dad determines the gender of the baby. Okay, and it's, like I said, it's 50% chance. Oop, that's ugly. 50% chance it's a girl, and 50% chance it's a boy. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so let's take a look at this, and you may start to notice something. So one thing we need to remember is that squares, right, are male. So they are X, Y, and circles are female. Right? So as we look at this pedigree, you may notice that everyone who has the trait, everyone who's filled in, is male, right? You see any females that are filled in that have this trait? We don't know what the trait is yet. You don't. So that's a big hint to you. If you see only one gender with the whole entire trait, right, then you know that it's probably going to be sex-linked or linked to that X or Y chromosome. Sex-linked. I hate writing like this. Okay. So we'll come back to this pedigree, but let's jump ahead into how this works. So an example of a sex-linked trait, right, is color blindness, right? You see mostly men who are colorblind, right, because it is sex-linked. So you should be able to see the numbers, right, as 45, 5, and 42, but somebody who's colorblind, depending on what type of colorblindness they are, they might not be able to see these numbers. This is another sex-linked trait. It's called hemophilia, right? This is just giving you some examples of things that are sex-linked. Okay, so now we're going to get into the difficult part. So we need to determine the probability that male or female children will have these different traits. And so what we do for that is we we write the X's and the XY's in, and then we write the traits in as well. So our example here is hemophilia, and that's represented if you have hemophilia, that's recessive. So you're going to be little h, right? And if you don't have hemophilia, that's dominant, so you'll be Big H, or big H, little h, right? Those are your options, right? So if you have big H, you do not have hemophilia, and you have little h, you do have hemophilia. Okay, so the way we do this is the very first thing you're going to do in your Punnett square is you're going to fill in the genders, or the sex. Shouldn't really use gender, should I? So you're going to fill in XX, XY. And the only way to do this is that 50% of the squares need to be XX, right? Because there's a 50% chance it's going to be female. And 50% of the squares need to be XY, right? Because you're starting with a male. There's a little sperm drawn in here. And a female with little eggs. So the very first thing you do in a sex-linked problem is fill in the X's and the Y's. So the X's and the Y's are all filled in. I'm going to change colors. Okay. So after you fill in the X's and the Y's, then you fill in the H's, or the trait. That's why it's a little bit more complicated, right? So the father is unaffected, which means he's normal and he has an H. Now hemophilia is X-linked. It's not just sex-linked, it's X-linked, which means that it is on the X chromosome. So, is he going to have an H on top up here by this Y? No, because it doesn't exist on the Y chromosome, right? It only exists on the X chromosome, so we don't even have to worry about the Y's. So there's nothing here. And because he's unaffected, we know he's normal, which is a capital H, right? So we know that on this X, he has to be normal, capital H. So there's nothing on this Y because it doesn't exist on the Y. And it's capital H on this X because he is unaffected. It's normal. So down over here, we know this mother is a carrier, which means when we see the word carrier, we should think heterozygous, right? So on one of her X's, she has a capital H, right? And on the other X, she has a lowercase h. So she does not have hemophilia, but she does carry that recessive allele for hemophilia. So maybe one of her children might have hemophilia. And then we fill it in. So you've already filled in the X's and the XY's, right? That's why you do that first. And then you go in, step 2 is filling in the H's. So in this one, this is capital H, capital H. This one, there's nothing to put on the Y, right? So you don't put anything there. On the X goes a capital H. Over here, we have capital H, lowercase h. Good. And over here, nothing goes on the Y because it doesn't even exist on the Y chromosome. It's only on the X-linked chromosome. And lowercase h, right, goes on the X. So now when we look at this, we see that we divide it down the line because these are males and these are females. So all of the daughters are unaffected, right? Because they are capital H, or heterozygous, which means that they are all normal. None of them have hemophilia. None of the daughter, if they have a daughter, it will not have hemophilia. However, one of the daughters is a carrier, right? This daughter is a carrier. We go over here to males, we see that this male is going to be normal, right? Because they don't have any hemophilia. But this male with the lowercase recessive h will be hemophilic, have hemophilia, right? So there's the potential, if they have a daughter, that daughter will not have hemophilia. But if they have a son, that son could have hemophilia, 50% chance. So you get into sort of these new genotype and phenotype ratios based on female and male. So it's more complicated, right? It's more complicated. So there's going to be a couple problems on homework about this. But just remember, if you fill in the X's and the Y's first, then everything is easier. Okay, so let's do a little practice problem. Okay, so we are going to do color blindness, right? And we're going to say if you color blindness is X-linked. Oop, let me freeze that. So color blindness is X-linked, which means it is only on the X chromosome, not on the Y, right? So, and we're gonna say that B is dominant, and it means normal eyes. And we'll say that lowercase b is recessive, and it means color blind. Okay, so what happens if we have a mom as a normal homozygous, right? So not a carrier. And dad as colorblind. Let's make that little Punnett square. So let me change the color to black. And we're gonna make a little table. This is my little Punnett square. Sorry, it's taking a little bit longer. Okay, and so then we're gonna write in. So the very first thing we write in, remember, is our X and our Y, right? So dad is up here. We could put him on the side, it doesn't matter. And mom is over here, right? So then this is X, X, female, X, X, female, X, Y, male, X, Y, male. Okay, so then we're gonna put in the genotypes, and we're gonna put those in red. So after we put in all of that, we put in our genotypes, right? Why is that still not the great color? Okay, let me just cut this. Okay, so now we're in red. So if mom is normal, mom is gonna be X, X, and they're homozygous, not a carrier. So she's gonna have a capital H and another capital H, right? So let's put that in. Capital H, capital H. And dad is colorblind, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using H's. Let me back up. Okay, so mom is normal, so she's capital B, capital B. So let's put those in. Sorry, I was using the wrong letter for my allele. And dad is colorblind, right? So dad is gonna be lowercase b. Lowercase b, but since Y there's nothing there, right? We're only putting one lowercase b here because it doesn't exist on this Y chromosome. And then we fill things in. So this is capital B, lowercase b, capital B, lowercase b. Over here, the Y is nothing, right? This is capital B, capital B. So you get something weird happening. Even though dad is colorblind, right? If they have a boy, none of those boys are going to be colorblind because that gene is coming from mom in this case. How weird is that? But if they have girls, both of those girls are going to be carriers. So none of their children, carriers, sorry. So none of their children will be colorblind, but their female children will be carriers, and their male children will not be colorblind, no carriers, because they can't be carriers, right? So what that means is maybe their children won't be colorblind, but maybe if their daughters go on to have children, their grandchildren could be colorblind. And this is how things skip a generation. Interesting, right? Okay, so maybe their grandchildren will be colorblind. Okay, so we're going to put this into practice. We're going to go back to this, right? And so what we see is it's only in males, right? And that usually indicates not only that it's sex-linked, but that it is X-linked, right? So it's on the X chromosome. So let's examine just this little section, right? So Bess and Ray don't have it, and they have one son with the trait, right? So we want to know, and we can assume that it's recessive. We want to know, what is Bess's genotype? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our X's. So this is XY, right? And this is XX. Remember, with these X-linked or sex-linked problems, you just want to put in the X's first. The X's and the Y's. Marion doesn't really matter, right? Because she's not part of the family. Okay, so we're going to, now we're going to work in red. So Ray does not have the trait, right? It's not filled in. So that's a lowercase b. We're going to assume this is color blindness just for simplicity's sake, right? But Ray Jr. does have the trait, right? Or I'm sorry, Ray doesn't have the trait, so it is a capital B. And then Ray Jr. does have the trait, which is recessive color blindness, so that's a lowercase b. So we know that because Bess doesn't have the trait visible, one of those is B, but this right here, we don't know. She could be two capital B's, or B lowercase b and be a carrier. We don't know. So let's do our quick Punnett table. Some of you might be able to just quickly figure this out, but we're going to do a Punnett table just to be safe. So we have an XY and an XX. And we're going to use this to work backwards, right? So we know that this is going to be XY, XY, this is X, 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 X. Okay, so let's take a look. Oh no. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I just did that. That's so annoying. Okay. I'm so sorry. You can skip ahead till I have this all filled out again. Oh my god, that was horrible. Wow. I cannot believe I just did that. X, Y, X. Okay. So we're filling in our children. So half the children are going to be male, right? And half the children will be female. And so now we're going to put in our genotypes with our red. So we know that Ray's genotype, right, is a capital B right here. So, and we know that this has nothing, right? So this is nothing, nothing, and we're gonna just fill what we know in. And we know that one of Bess's has to be capital B because, right, she doesn't show color blindness. So we know that she has to have at least one dominant allele. So let's put that one right here. This is still our question mark right here. So we'll put that right here. Okay, so let's figure this out. So Ray Jr., we know is lowercase b because he has, right, this. So that means the only possible way for them to have a male child with this lowercase b that has color blindness is if this female, this allele from mom, is also a lowercase b, which means that mom is a carrier. And so we figured out that mom's genotype is a carrier. See how we sort of filled in what we know for sure based on the pedigree, and then we worked backwards to figure out what mom is or what dad might be, okay? So you're gonna have a couple problems to do like this. This is sex linked. I know it's complicated, but like I've been saying the whole video, just start with doing the X and Y's and then fill in the actual alleles.